Going online without ExpressVPN is like not paying attention to the safety demonstration on a flight. Most of the time, you'll probably be fine. But what if one day that weird yellow mask drops down from overhead and you have no idea what to do? Nicole, Robbie, and I, we travel a lot, and we still watch those videos all the time just to give us a reminder in real time. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network in cafes, hotels, airports, your online data is not secure. Any hacker on the same network can gain access and steal your personal data, passwords, bank logins, credit card details, etc. It doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack someone. Just some cheap hardware is needed. A smart 12-year-old can do it. Your data is valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal info on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. It's super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. It's easy to use. You just fire up the app on your laptop, your phone, your tablet, and click one button, and you're protected. It even works on your Chromecast. Rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. So, as I said, Nicole, Robbie, and I all travel a lot, but we also have to regularly log in to the media sites for automakers to download embargoed press information about cars before it's meant to be out there in the public. And because we're on the road a lot, we may have to log in and check on our credit card accounts, our bank accounts, or even just if we're out of the country and we want to watch something on Netflix or Hulu that we can't get overseas that may only be available here in the U.S., or vice versa if you wanted to see something, if we wanted to watch something that's not available here in the U.S. ExpressVPN allows you to do that. I've been personally using ExpressVPN, paying for it myself for several years. It's a great VPN. It works really well. I've never noticed a slowdown in speed while using ExpressVPN. It's reliable. And it's so simple to use. So secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. And you get an extra 3 months when you sign up, all for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. And we want to thank ExpressVPN for supporting the Wheel Bearings podcast. Coming up on episode 354 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the Ineos Grenadier Quartermaster, the Polaris Ranger XP, and Genesis GV60, the Ford Mustang Dark Horse, VW ID Buzz Campers, Stellantis' Investor Day, the Maserati Gran Turismo Folgore, GMC Acadia First Drive, and markups on the Chevy Equinox EV. All that and more coming up next. This is episode 354 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Abdul-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
And I am Nicole Wakelam from CarBuzz.
And I am Roberto Baldwin from SAE International.
Oh, I like the way you roll.
I know.
Roberto Baldwin. When I pick up food, I'm the tallest white guy you probably know, and I walk in every time, like, I got an order for Roberto, and they're like, okay. There's typically a pause. The place I go to a lot, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we know you. But there, just like in high school when the teacher would say, Roberto, and she'd look around the room, and I raise my hand, and they just kind of give me the side eye. They're like,
are you really? Or are you just messing with me?
If you say so.
Actually, I know a taller white guy than you.
That his name
Jason
Roberto?
Howell. No.
Jason Howell is taller than me.
He's like 6'8".
Casey from The Verge and now Platformer. He's taller than me. We didn't meet each other for like the first 2 years we knew each other, and I'm like, I got to be taller than Casey. And people are like, and then I went and he's taller than me.
All right. Nicole, what have you been driving?
Okay, I got 2 things to talk about this week. I was driving this week the Genesis GV60 Performance all-wheel drive. Base price on this is $69,550. And gentlemen, destination?
Genesis. Oh, hold on. $1,195.
Wait, $1,500, Sam, and $1,195. Wait, 15.
Now we got to do math. See, the new rule makes us have to do math.
You're really close. Wait, I literally hold on a second. It's $1,350. Who's closer? $1,500.
$1,195.
Up by $150. And you said
105.
$11.95.
You're off by.
You were off by $4.95, so Robbie wins it by $5.
Okay, that
$5.
sounds like wait.
No, I'm sorry, I win it by $5. You were out by $455 or $155.
Oh, I forgot what we were saying because I realized I had to find the
That's-
numbers
this
for my
is just a
car.
quick quiz. I gotta like actually
Yeah.
do math, and it's
So I won it by $5.
Okay, I love that
That's
you immediately like
Macarinos.
I can do that. Okay, so go Sam. Okay,
Go Sam.
So tell us about the GV60
so the
performance.
GV60. Okay, so this is I don't know. I want to call it a crossover. It's an SUV, but it doesn't feel super large. It's
a hatchback.
Hatchback. Okay, let's call it a hatchback. It's an electric vehicle. It's an EV, which was kind of fun. It's neat when I like getting EVs, like honest to God, pure EVs in the driveway. It's always sort of neat. It has the flush handles. I have to comment on this right off the bat. So it has the flush handles. They pop out like at an angle when you walk up with the key in your pocket, or if you actually unlock it. But I went out with my brother-in-law's wife for dinner last night, and she hated the flush handles so much. She said she would never buy this car in all of her life ever because of that. Because she says it feels weird when you grab onto it. She's like, I feel like two things. She's like, first of all, it's like hard to grab if they're damp because the sprinklers had gotten onto the car and it was wet. Your hands like slide off of the metal. But she's like, what if this like decided to close? I'm like, what do you mean if it decided to close? What if it suddenly just closed and like grab my fingers in there? I'm like, I suppose that's conceivable, Susan.
It's not a Tesla.
Yeah, it's not gonna cut your hands. You know what?
No.
I'm actually not a. I have these are on the Ioniq 5 that we got. I'm not a fan of these types of door handles at all.
No,
I don't like them. I just want regular door handles that are always available. But I was just like, well, I guess there's one thing.
The other weird thing about this, so when you have your normal door handled car in your driveway, and if you're running back and forth in the house or you're just running around and you have the door unlocked, it just looks like a car sitting in your driveway. If you have one of these sitting in your driveway and the doors are unlocked, it's very weird. Like it looks weird because the handles stick out.
They're sticking out, yeah.
So it's like very visible.
It's like a dragonfly with the tiniest little wings.
Yeah, and they look weird when they're open because the handles only pop open for the 2 minutes you need them. So we were all like, no, on the flush door handles. And now I'm like, well, now I'm going to be thinking of Susan with her. What if your fingers get grabbed? And be like, open quickly. Don't shut and get my fingers. So that was her thing that she didn't like. She did, however, think inside it has that crystal gear shift, that flips little crystal orb shift thing.
The sphere.
So the sphere. It looks like a little orb sitting on your center console. And then once you turn on the car, it's like, and it flips up. And then it's your gear selector. She did think that was really incredibly cool. So hated the door handles, but that gear shifter made a big impression.
So now there's it's back and forth.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be enough to make her buy it. The gear, as cool as the gear shift was, the scary handles nixed the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean the gear shift is not very useful if you can't actually get into the car.
Correct. Yeah. So she was like, no on that. So the one I had was the Performance, which is the top of the line. It has all-wheel drive. So that, like I said, that one starts to $69,550, but you can get into this for quite a bit less. The standard, which is rear-wheel drive, was $52,000. The advanced, which is all-wheel drive, is $60,000, just over $60,000. So there's a pretty good price range here. But the kind of neat thing, or the interesting thing, especially with an EV, a lot changes as you move up that. So I have this open on the screen so I can actually see this. The horsepower on the rear-wheel drive is 225, all-wheel drive 314. The Performance all-wheel drive 429. So you get not like a little different, not like a tiny smidge of difference in horsepower.
Not like, say, 14 horsepower difference, but like a
right, like we're like 14 horsepower. Who cares? Like 225, 314, 429. Those are significantly different numbers. So the experience I got genuinely was the highest horsepower version of this. You could get a very different experience driving the standard or even driving the advanced. And also the power really messes with the range that you get in these two. So the base trim, the lowest, the standard, has 225 miles of range. Then you go to the advanced, it's 314. When you get to this one though, it's 235. So again, you're getting like once you get to the Performance, there's a big difference in range. But even when you're at the other two, you got to these, like the differences are dramatic with this. Like sometimes the differences as you go up trim levels are little steps. They're kind of big steps with this one. So I think it's something to sort of be aware of. Don't drive one and be like, oh, they're all going to drive this way. Drive the one that you're actually thinking of buying, because it could give you a very, I think, different drive experience. That said, I did enjoy driving this. The little boost button on the steering wheel that gives you a little extra, opens up, gives you full juice for a minute. I just pushed it for play. Like, I wonder how much. I'd even push on the gas and I'm like, whoa, I needed to brake. Like I was right in the back seat of the person in front of me. So it does give you a nice little boost of power, which is kind of fun. But even without that, I mean, that's a lot of horsepower. It's a responsive vehicle. It's not that big. So you go pretty quick. When you want to go, you go. And I liked too that when this one, I was talking about little things with like the door handles and the gear shift, the sound on this isn't overly intrusive, little hum when you're at the low speed so that you don't run down random pedestrians who don't hear you coming. Some EVs, it's annoyingly loud. This is very quiet. Like, it's enough. You hear it. But I don't know what the official government regulations are for sound, like what it has to
level.
be. Decibel level?
There is a requirement, a legal requirement for the exterior sound,
right?
Not the interior
This
sound.
is an
The interior
exterior,
could be
right.
anything,
right? But you like, it's a very quiet, because I had the windows rolled down and I'm like, oh, that's so quiet. So I feel like, I don't know this for sure, but it seemed compared to other EVs I've driven, Genesis is like, this is as loud as it has to be. We're going to be right there. Like, they didn't go a skosh over. It was exactly, this is this nice low sound. Some of them are annoying and people don't look at you like, oh, there's a car. They look at you like, what the heck? Like, it was sort of like, what are you driving?
Bothering me.
That horrific noise. Yeah. So I did enjoy driving this. One of the things I wanted to try and couldn't, it has a facial recognition thing on the E-pillar. It's like a little rectangle, maybe as long as a credit card, but thinner. And you can use that so you can just kind of lean over and it will open your door. To set that, you need both key fobs. Yeah.
Oh,
I did.
When I had one, I tried it, and I'm pretty sure I didn't have both fobs.
Mine literally says, and I tried it 3 different times.
Okay.
I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm sitting there with a key fob. I'm in the car. He's like, you need both key fobs in order to.
They may have changed that to add extra security.
Key fobs. It says like both whatever keys. Like, and I'm like, well, I don't have both of them. Like, the fleet company has the other one.
No, there was a kid who did it, who like grabbed one of his parents' keys, did the thing, and now I can steal the car anytime I want.
I don't know. But so now you have to have both of them. And it might be exactly that, Sam. I don't know if that's something they changed, but I really wanted to play with that. And after I find the settings, because you got to go into the settings menu and find the spot where it lets you change that. And it's like, okay, yes, I'd like to change. Yes, please change. You need both keys. Come on. Like, so couldn't play with it. I think.
Did you try the fingerprint sensor?
I did not try the fingerprint sensor. I got all disgruntled when I couldn't use the facial thing, and I'm like, get it. I'm not using your fancy tech. No, but I've tried fingerprint things on cars. That wasn't cool. The cool part would have been just looking at my car and having it go like, "Welcome, Nicole," and the doors open. But I could not experience that, and I was a little sad. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little sad. But this, I mean, and this does like what Genesis does very well. It's like the price on this at $70,000. It's not a cheap car, but you get so much content in this car. Like, you have a digital instrument cluster, you have a 12.3-inch navigation system. There's this cool Bang & Olufsen audio system. You've got a wireless charger, like you said, the fingerprint thing, the Face ID thing. When you have both keys, it has Nappa leather seating surfaces and like a microfiber headliner. It looks and feels like every bit the luxury car. And, it's not cheap at $70,000. I'm not saying it's cheap, but it's got lots of horsepower. It's got style. It's got all the features inside for only $70,000. You could look at this in other brands and think that it's going to be a chunk higher. So I think they continue to do the same thing that Hyundai does. They give you a very good value for what you get. You do, apples for apples in another OEM, and you're going to pay a little bit more for the same experience. So I think it continues to do that. I did not like this color. I was trying, what did they call it? It's this, it looks like it's copper. I could not find it. They have it written on my little loan form, but this man's handwriting leaves something to be desired. It looks like something copper. It looks like Atamaca, Statamaca, Stamaka. It's copper. I think it looks like a rose gold. So all I can think of is a cell phone when I look at the color. Like, it's a rose gold iPhone that I'm driving down the road. And so I was not keen on the color. But it's a cute car. It has this very sort of, styling wise, it has this sort of futuristic, everything's very rounded. like Russ put it really, really well. He said the interior, in terms of sort of the overall styling, it makes him think of the vision of the future from the 50s. Everything's always round and curved and circles and smooth, and that sort of style to it. I love that there is a huge amount of open space for a small car, because the way the console's done, it's not all the way down to the floor. So you have this huge open space, and even in front, like underneath the center, like underneath the dash, there's a little storage pod, and you can fully shove like a woman's large wallet in there, and your key and your phone and a bunch of stuff. So it's a great little like storage spot for holding stuff. And I also really like how they did the glove box. Have you guys been in this car? Have you played with it?
Mm-hmm.
It opens like a drawer. It's not like a little thing that flips down. Like it actually pulls open like a drawer in your kitchen. So when you put stuff in, it doesn't all go like slide to the bottom when the thing tips up. When you put it in there, it just stays in there and it opens and closes like an actual drawer. I thought that was neat, because you're ever putting stuff in a glove box and everything falls to the very bottom in the crease, and you're like fumbling in there to find a pen or a straw or whatever has settled at the bottom. This is just a nice flat actual drawer, which I thought was kind of neat. So I enjoyed driving this. I thought it was beautiful. It was unique. It has styling. It's different. Not everybody knows what it is. Oh, that was probably the only thing, Jessica, I hate this. But my sister-in-law, when she looked at it, she saw the Genesis badge, and the first thing she thought, because she didn't know who Genesis was, she's never heard of the brand because she's not a car person, she thought Chrysler.
Yeah,
The new Chrysler.
Right?
it does kind of look like the Chrysler
Right.
wing
And
badge.
it had nothing to do with the style, just the badge. If you're not a car person, when you first see that, you probably think of Chrysler. So, but she had no idea who Genesis was, or even like not, oh, who owns them or whatever, just what is this car? Which I think goes back to the fact that even though the three of us know them and a lot of our listeners probably know them, they are still a relatively unknown brand. They don't have that same kind of instant recognition. If you see a Ford or you see a Chevy or you see these other brands that have been around a while, people still don't know it. So I feel like when we're recommending people, check it out, try it, tell your neighbors. Your neighbors have no idea that it even exists. So
Genesis.
Our friend Wendy Orthman has some work to do on brand awareness.
yes.
For Genesis.
Sorry, Wendy, that's not a slam against you. No, it's just, I think it's just
totally a
people don't know
slam
it.
against you, Wendy.
Not stop it. I love Wendy Orton. So that was just an interesting thing to me, that it's still, I think it's sort of almost like a check yourself kind of thing as a journalist. Like, oh wow, we do get exposed to a lot of stuff that is like old hat that regular folks just have never even, like, she didn't know the brand, had never even heard of it. So, but overall I liked it. Susan liked it except for the door handles, and Russ liked it because he thought it reminded him of a 50s version of the future. So there you go.
Very nice. And what else did you have?
Well, the other thing wasn't a thing I have, and you have it lower down in the show notes, but I was planning on talking about it now, so I'm talking about it now. I went on an adventure with Polaris. Adventure. So I went to the UP, the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, which is the UP, which I've only been to.
Did you meet some Yoopers?
I did. I met Yoopers, and the one person she did it, they like use stereotypical Midwestern kind of like slang, and it was kind of funny. I'm like, I feel like I'm in like a skit, like a being punked, but they really sound like this. But so we went up there with Polaris because they have their, and I want to make sure I get the order of the words right. I might not. It's the Polaris Ranger XP Kinetic, which is their EV, and it's been around for a little bit. I think it's been about a year it's been out. So it's an EV, but it's a little off-road thing based on the regular Ranger. And they brought us up there because they wanted us to give a chance to drive it, and also because they did something kind of cool. They opened up this charging network. So it has 4 different chargers in 4 different towns up in that area. And they're like, I think there's a bunch of spots to plug in, to say charging stations. It's entirely free. And it's on this area where there's all these trails. It's like 100 miles of trails basically that it ends up supporting. And it was like a joint effort between Polaris and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and the Michigan Office of Future Mobility and Electrification, all sorts of government entities, because it's not a cheap thing to do all this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, last fall at the Detroit Auto Show, I talked to somebody from Polaris.
Yeah.
We talked about it here on the show. You mentioned that they were opening this up this spring, and they worked with one of the rental companies in the UP that rents out these Rangers. The Ranger, for those not familiar with it, is a side by side four-wheel drive off-road vehicle.
Mm-hmm. And the company you're talking about, it's actually, you can rent them at Hamilton's North Coast Adventures, which is an official Polaris Adventures outfitter. So you can rent them there, which is kind of neat. So if you want it, you're kind of curious, you don't have to worry about owning your own and like taking the plunge, you can drive these. And the neat thing about it is it just like with an electric car, like the Genesis I had, you don't really have to learn anything new. There's no real giant changes to driving an electric, and it's the same with this. But the cool thing about doing this in the Polaris is that you're out there in the middle of nowhere. You're in the woods. You know, a lot of people use these as like work vehicles around a farm or a ranch or whatever. But when you're having fun, you're hearing the loud engine all the time in these, and they're loud when they're gas powered vehicles. When it's an EV, suddenly you're not hearing that. You're hearing, grass crunching under the wheels. You're hearing, there was a waterfall we stopped and saw because we could hear it. And you hear birds and you hear what's around you. And it actually makes the experience of being outside and enjoying the outdoors more fun. And even just talking to the person next to you. If you're in a side-by-side like that, you're talking to the person next to you, you're raising your voice to be heard significantly. If you were normally driving one powered by gas, you driving this, and you can pretty much talk in a normal voice, aside from the fact that we had to wear helmets, which makes normal voice a little tricky. But they had us wear helmets, protective eyewear, and gloves the whole time, which is cool. I get it. But we're also in a totally enclosed one. It had like doors and windows and like the plastic, like there was no open anything. So I'm like, I felt very protected. And then it was an overcast day and the glasses were ever so slightly tinted. I'm like, I don't know if this is making me safer or not. I can't see where I'm going, but you had to wear all this stuff. So you're very, very cognizant of having us all in the safety gear. It was really fun to drive these. They're not the most inexpensive options on the planet. So they have two different versions of this. The base premium trim is about $30,000 and it gets you 45 miles of range. And the ultimate is just over 37, and that gets you 80 miles of range. And they come with a charging kit, so you can plug in wherever you find a plug-in. If you just want to plug in at a plug, you can do that. And those range numbers, like the thing is, they sound really low because we're used to thinking about cars that you're driving on the road and going really long distances. Chances are good you're not driving that far off-road in a day in one of these. You could be, but chances are good you're not going to use all that up. So when we took ours out for a drive, they actually had us stop in one of their little charging things is just off the trails in this tiny little town next to a yummy, yummy diner where they took us to have a little snack. And we just plugged in there and sort of like topped off before we continued driving. I think the only thing that I heard someone say, there was a woman on our trip who had never driven an electric vehicle. She was an automotive journalist. She was like a Michigan blogger talking about the Michigan lifestyle and places you can go. So her thing was not vehicles. It was more the experience of come to the UP and do this. And she hadn't driven an EV. And she said it took her a little time to get used to the regenerative braking. It threw at first when she lifted off and it stops. Which is kind of the case in any EV. If you've never experienced that the first time you do, depending on how high it's set, it can be a little disconcerting. But they also have the ability to change it. So if you want to make it very mild and you don't want to notice it, fine. If you want to make it a little bit more aggressive and you really want it to brake, you can do that. But I had a great time driving these. It was really fun. And it's a beautiful area of the country. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. And I think, this is sort of, like I said, it was a bunch of organizations. It wasn't just Polaris did this on their own because it's not an inexpensive proposition to build this stuff. And it's not as though when you're in these really rural areas, like you're in the UP, it's not like there's a huge number of people that could be coming through here to make this a real great profit-making proposition for any company who would install an EV charger because there's not going to be thousands of people plugging in. So it's kind of neat that they did this because it's sort of almost like a test. How does this work out? Do people like doing it? Does this help people? How does this work? How we do this in the future? So it's neat to see them do it. And anybody could plug in. So if you want to just charge your EV, you could technically do that, like your regular old car. It's not exclusive to people who own a Polaris.
So if you were going up to the UP and you wanted to rent one of these for a day and do a little adventure around this loop, how much would it cost? You know what?
I don't actually have the rent. That's a good question. I didn't actually get the cost to rent one for a day.
What was the name of the place?
It's called, like, we can Google it, Hamilton's North Coast Adventures, which is one of their Polaris outfitters. I actually did not get that. I did not even think to ask for the day. I don't know that it would be that much more expensive than getting, I wouldn't think, than getting just one of the regular ones. Are you Googling now,
Well,
Sam?
I'm Googling now, so just keep talking.
Okay. So, but I mean, that's the gist of it, that it basically, it gives you, and they have the EV charging stations are cool in that they have solar power, and they were saying they use the solar to sort of charge up the battery banks that are at the charging unit. And then when people plug in, it's going to pull from those batteries, but it is also wired into the hardwired in there. So if batteries don't have enough, it can still charge you up, but it can just kind of solar power and store all day, which also makes the concept of these possible to do someplace where you didn't have access to power. You'd be limited by what the solar power in the batteries, but you could put these technically anywhere, even where there wasn't this huge electric infrastructure to support them. So that was kind of neat too.
So a full day rental for 9 hours for one of these Polaris Ranger Kinetics is $299.
So 2 people, $150.
Right? It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not, for a full day, if you look at, various other types of excursions that you might do on a vacation, $300 for a full day is actually not bad at all.
It's not bad at all. No, it's fun.
I'm assuming it comes with gear that they put on you that's all sweaty and gross that someone else has worn, since you probably don't have a helmet.
Almost certainly.
I'm sure. Hopefully, it's not super sweaty and gross. I don't know. The helmet. The only really thing you have to worry about being sweaty and gross is the helmet, right? That's it.
Yeah. That's why you wear the helmet sock.
Yeah, I'm sure they disinfect them, spray them down and stuff.
Like a bowling alley. I used to run a bowling alley, and I would have one you have to spray it in every shoe, and I would have employees that just sort of spray over all the shoes. Like if there was a big group of bowlers, I'm like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "That's good enough." I'm like, "No."
No, I don't want never bowling again. Okay.
Sorry about that.
So I put the link to Hamilton's North Coast Adventures in the show notes.
And it's really fun. And the thing is, the 2 different versions that they have, what changes is it gets a little more tech inside, in addition to getting the longer range. We also get a fancier little display. Like there is like a little infotainment type display screen, way tinier than what you have in a car, but you have a little touch screen and everything. So it is kind of neat. It was fun. I enjoyed it. And it's something I never do on my own. I've literally only done it with these guys a couple of times, but I'm like, that's really fun. I should just do this one weekend because this is fun. I actually enjoy this.
Oh, I love 5x5.
Yeah. So, and the standard gas powered Rangers start at about $12,000. So
they're a lot less, but they're one of the things that they pointed out. If you're someone who drives if the off-road vehicle thing, the ORVs or ATVs, or if you want to call them, has been your thing, is that there's a lot of maintenance you have to deal with when you have the gas ones, and there's the potential for things to go wrong a little bit more. So, you're paying more for this, but you're also reducing a lot of your maintenance costs theoretically by having the EV instead. So there's a little bit of a trade-off there, and you're not having to, put gas in it all the time. So there's a trade. But I honestly, if I was going to buy one, I like off-roading with the electric. It's one of the most fun things about having a 4xe for the Wrangler. When you're off-road, you just save that EV power. And when you go off-road, you don't hear the engine. You hear what's around you, which is kind of what you want when you're off-roading. So.
Yeah, it's really cool with the electric bikes when you're just riding through and it's all nice and quiet. All you hear is like the little bits of plastic smacking against each other that you don't hear on a regular motorcycle because they're so damn loud.
Right?
It's really nice. You're just kind of cruising through.
Exactly. You just hear that, like I said, stuff crunching under the tires, and you hear what's around you. You hear the nature, you hear birds, you hear all sorts of stuff instead of hearing like the whole time you're going, so I'm a big fan of EVs off-road.
Yeah. It's going to be real interesting over the next couple of years with some of the other off-road EVs that are coming to market. Later this year, we get the Jeep Recon, in 26 or 7, we're going to have the Scouts, and there's going to be others coming to market as well. So I think we're going to have a lot more opportunities to do this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a neat idea. And I think it's a perfect application of that. You don't really think about like, oh, I'm going to off-road an EV, but yeah, you're off-roading because you want to be out there and you want to see what's out there and you want to experience nature and wherever you are. You experience it better when you don't hear your engine just droning in the background.
And when you are going off road, one of the advantages of a vehicle like the Polaris Ranger it's a lot smaller. It can get into places where a larger vehicle, even something like a Wrangler, just simply won't fit.
Right.
And if you're talking about something like a Cybertruck or a Hummer EV, those things are huge compared to these things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Side on
you have a lot more.
Side note on the Cybertruck. So my best friend sends me a text this week. What the F is this? And I'm like, what are you kidding me, right?
Oh.
Checking for the picture to come through. And it comes through as the back of a Cybertruck. I'm like, that's the Cybertruck. And she says, again, what the F is this? I'm like, it's the Tesla truck that they came out with. She's like, I keep seeing them around town. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're seeing the same one because I can't imagine there's a whole bunch in your town. She was horrified. She's like, that is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. I'm like,
it's interesting to see the people who just have sort of ignored the whole Tesla ordeal with the Cybertruck, and then they see one, they're like, what is this thing? Why is it in my town? Is
this just something people can buy? Like, yeah, you can if you want it.
Not just can, but do. That was it.
Yep. She thought it was so. She's like, I keep seeing it, and I'm just driving along. Yeah, I'm like, well, there's the one you're going to see. I can't imagine that Chelmsford, Massachusetts, has an overabundance of Cybertrucks, so it's probably the same guy.
He's just driving it around, making sure everybody sees that he's got it.
Take off my bestie. Yeah.
Look at my Cybertruck.
All right. Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. Okay. Robbie.
Yes.
Well,
any final thoughts on the Polaris adventure?
No, that was the final thoughts. Like I enjoyed it. I think it's great. I'm a big fan of EVs off road, and I really enjoyed driving this one. It was very much like driving. If you used to driving with power with gas, you're not going to notice any difference other than maybe that regenerative braking you have to get used to a little bit, which takes about 2 seconds. But it was fabulous. I had a great time.
Okay. Yep.
Go, Robbie.
Go, Robbie. Go, Robbie. Go. Oh, sorry. So I drove the Ineos Grenadiers. I drove the Quartermaster and the station wagon, which are the wagon, not the station wagon. I guess they just call it the wagon. It's, if you're not aware, Grenadier is, Ineos is a petrochemical company that decided they wanted to start a little car company based on old-timey Defenders, essentially. So if you're a big fan of old-timey or Land Rovers or old-timey, any old-timey 70s, early 80s off-roader, that's what this looks like. It looks just like one of those. They are powered by the bulletproof BMW inline 6 motor. So they're sourcing their motors from BMW. They're using the same ZF transmission that that motor's paired with and all the BMWs out there. And they the building and design, they use Magna Steyr. The seats are Recaro seats. For a company that's like, okay, we're going to build this car, there's a lot of work that they had to do, but they partner with a lot of really smart people in the industry for a lot of the things. They're like, well, we don't need to be the company that builds a motor for a car that maybe, or a vehicle that when I was talking to the VP of the Americas, it was like, well, we could do 50,000 a year if we did like 3 shifts. Like the only thing that's stopping us from making more cars is, more people have to buy them, but also we just have to we would have to add more shifts at the factory. So it's not it is a very much a niche vehicle. So I'm just going to preface everything I say after that. After this is a very purpose-built vehicle, and its purpose is going off-road and being cool. That's and if that's your jam, that's exactly what this vehicle is. So first of all, they're not cheap. The starting price is for the station wagon is $71,500, and the Quartermaster, which is their pickup, it's the extra bed, full size cab but like a tiny little bed. Pickup starts at 86,900. The reason for the difference is you can blame chicken tax for all of that. But I got, these are new cars from a new car company, and I got in them, and we did 90% of our driving off road. We just like, hey, we're going to go off road, which, yeah, okay. And Palm Springs, which was really hot. So the air conditioning works great. So that's important. Uh, but yeah, we took these off road, and they are so incredibly solid and well built. That is and that's a big deal when you're going off road. And it didn't seem like, there was one section where we went up this like hill, and they had someone else drive us up this big hill. And, you're doing the 3-wheel motion. The tires are all over the place, and it just felt like it was like, yeah, that's no big deal. Like nothing felt like it was a big deal in this vehicle. Anytime you had to do something, there were a few areas where I had to crawl, do a little bit of rock crawling, and it just goes. It just does the thing it's built for. And so, but doing the thing that it's built for does create one really weird situation, and that is steering. So it has old-timey recirculating ball steering. Now, recirculating ball steering, the reason they're doing with this is because it's great for off-roading, and it's also really, really solid. Like it's less likely to break versus rack and pinion steering, which is all the things that you have now. Also, because the turning is so, you have to turn it like 5 times to turn left. You're less likely to snap your thumbs off. If you've ever done any off-roading, if the kickback, like let's say you're driving and you slip off a rock or you hit something and the wheel turns really quickly, like you're supposed to drive with your thumbs outside of your wheel when you're off-roading, so you don't, bruise them, break them, whatever. It was very weird. Like as soon as we went off-road, like I just automatically moved my thumbs out, but I kind of didn't. I mean, I still did just in case, because you never know. Everyone likes thumbs. How am I supposed to do like Fonzie stuff? So yeah, no, and that's great, but then you get on road and you're driving, and there's a lot of play in that steering. Like if once you get above 60 and there's like turns, you're like, oh, it's almost like driving a boat a little bit. Like you're kind of like doing a lot of adjustments because you're not quite sure where you're supposed to be. And also the recirculating ball means that the steering doesn't just shoot back to middle center. So you have to move.
Actually, it doesn't really shoot back at all.
Yeah, it doesn't really shoot back again, which is sort of the reason you want it. But so you have to like sort of move. You have to move it back to middle center when you're driving. So there's no like, oh, let's go to the steering wheel, and you just boop, nope. And so and what's weird is that when you're off-roading, especially if you're rock crawling, you have a spotter, and the spotter's telling me to go to straighten out the wheels. So I turn it, and I think it's straight, and he keeps doing it. I'm like, oh, there's a whole other turn that I have to do to get straight, like a whole other revolution of the steering wheel.
That's weird.
And they're okay, now it's straight. Again, this is because of that recirculating ball. You have to do a lot of turning, but it gives you a lot of control, like going over these rocks. But the downside is that, wait, am I center? I don't know. Sometimes you might be like, oh, I'm not quite centered. Let me do a whole other turn. And if you're off-roading, you're going at a nice, like, steady pace, like 40, 50, or, well, probably like 30, 40, you're fine. But if you're trying to do, rally off-roading, this is not the vehicle to do it. Because your hands are just going to be flying, like, left and right when you're doing turns. Because you have to, again, it won't recenter itself. So you have to like recenter it and then turn a lot. Every turn is a lot of turns. There's a lot of revolutions in this vehicle when you're turning. And again, that's what they wanted. They did it for a very specific reason. And when asked about like, what do customers think about it, they're like, well, initially they're just like, okay, what's going on? And they say after, and the customers have been telling them after 20 minutes they understand. But right now, most of their customers are enthusiasts. So these are people who understand why this vehicle does this thing. They understand, okay, well, yes, you have this recirculating ball because it's less likely to break. It's easy, it's better for off-roading for a lot of reasons, but you have this huge sort of caveat that like it's not great for flying down the regular road because you're like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. It's very much a chill driving down the road, down asphalt vehicle, and then letting it really shine when it's off-roading. So yeah, don't get this and then expect to a lot of modern SUVs really feel like cars and they really kind of drive like cars, and there's a lot of chassis work that went into that, and a lot of steering, a lot of brakes, a lot of this. This is not that car. This very much feels like the off-roaders from the 70s and 80s, where there is a little bit you have to do, and even shifting in the low, there's not like an electric button. Like you have to grab another shift and just you got to give it to beans. Give the beans into low. It does have a center differential lock, and then you can get an optional front and back lock for it. But what it does for what it is, it's really great. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun driving it, and again, even talking to them later, like it's going to be enthusiasts, and then it's going to be people who are like, well, I want something like a G-Wagon, but I don't want to be like everyone else. And so you're going to get a lot of people who are going to buy these, and it's never going to go off road. It's going to look like it's going off road, but it's never going to go off road. And for those people, they're probably driving through town, so the steering probably won't be that big of a deal for them. Probably when they're on I'm guessing the 405, when they have to get off the off ramp, they're like, oh, you got to turn a lot. Interior, again, like everything else, is very purpose built. What's great is there's a ton of buttons. Everything's a button. And yes, there is some stuff in the infotainment screen, but it's mostly there's buttons above you, there's buttons in front of you, there's buttons for like lock and differential, there's buttons for and to change the heat and the cooling and the audio, and it's just a lot of buttons, and it's outstanding. A bunch of aux buttons, and you reach up like you're in a big rig or a jet, and you get to push all these little buttons on and off. So for that, I really enjoy it. It doesn't even have navigation in its infotainment system. They're like, just plug your phone if you want navigation. There is a very weird like cluster in front of you in the dash, like the dash cluster. It's just all the warning lights. Okay. The speed is over in the infotainment system over to your right. I'm just like, well, so I've never been a fan of that. I owned a Mini. I didn't like it then. Driven a lot of Model 3s. Don't like it in those. I want speed, at least just speed in front of me. So there's that, but yeah, it is. It's like, yeah, there's a little display here, but it's just all the things that are going wrong. Like, you haven't put your seatbelt on, or it tells you like, your differentials are locked, whether you have the center or the front or the rear differential is locked. Yeah, just like, and that BMW inline six, they've tweaked it so it had, to essentially for this vehicle, it's been tweaked, so it's not, you're not getting that fun like, oh, it's it's really adjusted for low range driving. All that said, it's still I actually really enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed going off road with it. It is very much like if I lived in Alaska.
It would be great for that.
Yes, it'd be great for Alaska. Like if someone's like, "Hey, you're rich for some reason. I don't know how that happened." I decided I'm going to move to Alaska. I would probably get one of these. Like it feels very solid. But I don't live in Alaska. I live in the Bay Area, and
so this isn't quite so practical.
It's less practical in the Bay Area because it definitely, it's all the people who buy Jeeps or Tacomas or Broncos, and then they outfit the hell out of them. They buy a $40,000-$50,000 Jeep, and then they put $25,000 worth of stuff on it, and then it just sort of cruises through the Target parking lot. Yeah, this is, you could get this probably around the same price because you've outfitted your vehicle. But if you're not going off road, I'm just like, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna use it to, drop your kids off at school and take it to the Target parking lot, you're probably really not going to enjoy this thing.
Yeah, it's going to look cool unless you want to look cool. If you're buying it for the gram, yes. If you're buying it for the Instagram, sure, fine. Buy it, drive it around, get pretty pictures, find a dirt road somewhere occasionally, sure. If you're buying it for just around town, this is not made for just kind of cruising around
Not
town
the right car.
no, this is don't buy this. But if you're someone who's like, I want to go camping out in the middle of God knows where, then this is the vehicle that you're going to want to get for, if you don't want to get, again, a Toyota or a Wrangler or a Defender. No, I had a lot of fun driving it. We didn't get to do any fording because it's the desert, but I think it's like 36 inches of
You couldn't
water.
find somewhere to randomly ford, just find a place, find a bottle of water somewhere.
Yeah, it's got 10.3 inches of ground clearance, which is nice. It'll tow 7,716, so you can tow with it. That's fine. Let me look a little bit at my thing. I'm trying to find how much water I can drive through. I think they said like 36. Anyway, you could drive through a lot of water, and you can get one that's outfitted with a snorkel, like from the factory. You just throw a snorkel on there. The belt line's really nice. This is something I know that Sam's always concerned about, especially when it comes to the Polestar. Like where the window rolls down, there's a nice big ledge for you to put your arm. It's like a huge, gigantic, like a few inches. I'm like this, and if the window's not down, you still put your arm there. For some reason, I found that really nice. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm like, oh, where's Sam? Where's Sam? Where's Sam? So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It, again, great for off-roading. And not like, oh, I just need to go up a dirt road. Like it'll do proper off-roading. It'll drive through things and under things and over things. And it's 31.5 inches for weighting. So not 36.
Well, that's unacceptable.
That's unacceptable. I know.
Not good enough.
Yeah, the approach angle for the truck is 36 point. For both of them, it's 36.2. The departure angle for the truck, because the truck is 22.6 degrees, while the wagon is 36.1. So as you would expect, because a truck is a truck, and you got to put that extra bed back there. But off-roaders, if you're going to spend a lot of money on a Wrangler or a Bronco or a Tacoma to buy it and then outfit it, maybe just check this out. They are opening. There are dealerships for this vehicle. If you live close to one, this is probably something you should check out. If you live really, really far from one, you have to remember this is a brand new company. And while they have Magna Steyr like helping them with this thing, it's a brand new car. So things are always going to go a little, sideways with the first year of a brand new car.
So maybe you don't want to take one of these to Alaska right away.
Yes, unless you live next to next to one of their dealerships. I would say maybe hold off just a little bit, unless you're really handy with the you can turn a wrench. Then we talked a little bit about to this with them, and I'm like, do we have service manuals? Or like, we have one, but it's sort of, we keep making it better that people can get to. So I'm like, all right, so buy one near the dealership.
So would you buy a first year of another car? It's a I don't know. It's a Ford.
I always want to, and then I always and then you shouldn't really, to be honest. You should always wait. Like in the first year of every car, there's always going to be something weird. Unless you absolutely positively have to have that vehicle, there's always going to be something goofy or weird that's going on. Yeah. The first year of the new BRZ GR86, they have the oil pan issues, blowing engines. The first years of the Broncos had issues. The first year of, every car has something, especially the first year. What's nice is that, it's a very analog vehicle. Like you get into it, it feels very analog. They have an electric vehicle coming, the Fusilier. Now it'll be electric and then also a extended range hybrid. But if they keep all the analog bits inside and they're just like, oh, it's just electric now, that would I don't know, that would be great, to be honest. And I told him this. I think there really is a hunger in the market for people who I want an EV, but I don't need spaceship technology inside the EV. I don't need the latest and greatest technology. I just
You
want to be
know,
able to say I'm driving a vehicle that's quiet, that's better for the environment, that every morning when I wake up, it's charged and ready to go. But I also don't want to get in and have like 50 like bells and whistles yelling at me like, "Hey, do you want it to, you know, be your best friend? Do you need an AI best friend? No, I don't need an AI best friend. I just want to drive around and push buttons. So yeah, if you like driving around and pushing buttons, Fusilier, year two, it's going to be awesome. I think. I hope. I don't know. So yeah,
Well, interesting thing about the Fusilier is, the Grenadier, is clearly a design knockoff of the Defender, and we talked about this before. The guy that runs Ineos, when Land Rover announced that they were going to stop production of the old school Defender, he offered to buy the tooling, buy the equipment from Land Rover, and continue building them. And Land Rover said, "Nope, we don't want to sell it to you." And so he went and hired designers and engineers, and they designed a vehicle that looks very much like the old Defender. And Land Rover actually sued, for trade dress infringement and lost. And so he got to go ahead and build this thing. And the Fusilier, the upcoming Fusilier, actually looks very much like a G-Wagon.
It does look exactly. It looks pretty much like a G-Wagon. Like if it was driving down the street and you didn't know it was a different company, if you just kind of saw it really quickly, like, oh, there's a new G-Wagon. Like, nope, no, it's not.
Yeah. So would you, I guess, would you ever consider taking the Quartermaster over the wagon? I mean, is it worth
losing the space?
What use case would you have for the pickup truck?
That's the thing is that with the pickup trucks is that unless you're carrying something that's going to be just not going to fit in the back, it's going to be taller, it's going to be longer, it's going to be for all these different reasons, or you just don't want it in your vehicle. That's what the Quartermaster's for. If you're going to throw a bunch of junk back there. If you're a person with dogs and you don't want to sit in the back seat, there's a lot of room in the station wagon. You can throw them in the very back. It's why I want a K van from Japan versus a K truck, because mostly it's like, oh, I can put the dogs back there, and then I can still do a majority of the hauling that I need to do. Occasionally there'll be something big and whatever. But if you let's say you don't want to, let's say you already have stuff stacked on top of your vehicle and you have like a kayak or a surfboard or whatever, and you want sticking out the back, then you're like, oh, maybe I should get the Quartermaster. Again, trucks are very, they're great for the things for trucks things, but a majority of people aren't doing the truck things with it. Like if I'm picking up, if I'm hauling a bunch of animal feces because I have a farm and I got to move it somewhere, or I'm selling it to somebody maybe the Quartermaster is the way to go, because you don't just drive around with poop in your car. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you know what the delivery fee is on this thing?
I couldn't. You know what? They had a Monroney in the car, and I forgot to take a photo. I was just looking and see if I had a photo. So I don't know what the delivery fee is. And then I looked on the site and I tried to configure a car. So it's money. I don't know how much it is, but it's money. They're not. These are not inexpensive. The station wagon starts at $71,500, and the Quartermaster, way more expensive, $15,000 more at $86,900. But and I drove both, and both of them I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then you driving off road, if you're doing like 70 and you're in a mountain, let's say a mountain pass on the freeway, and there's a lot of turning, it's a little challenging. So don't buy this if you think you're going to be driving 80 miles an hour like a lot of people do in like an Expedition and going around corners, because those cars are they're not really for off-roading. This is definitely this is what you're going to do with it. If you don't like that, go buy something else. We're fine.
Yeah.
We know we have an audience for this, and again. Oh, if I lived in Hawaii, this would be cool too. Anyway, yeah, if you live somewhere where there's like a lot of your life involves off-roading, this is a pretty sweet vehicle.
Excellent. All right. Well, I had a vehicle that is very much not for off-roading, very much not as quiet as the Genesis GV60. It's kind of the opposite of both of these vehicles. It was the Ford Mustang Dark Horse. In fact, the Dark Horse Premium. So, when I first saw the new Mustang in almost 2 years ago now, August of 2022, when they did a backgrounder before they unveiled it at the auto show that year, I was not crazy about the design changes that they did to the new Mustang compared to the previous generation. It's grown on me a bit. Especially the back end is more appealing to me now than it was when I first saw it. Still not thrilled with the front, but it's getting better to my eyes. One thing, the Dark Horse is the top end of the current Mustang lineup. So right now, at this point in time, they don't have any Shelbys in the lineup. They don't have any GT500s or GT350s or Mach 1s or Bullets. This is the top end Mustang right now. And after driving it for a week, I can say that when at some point in the future, which probably won't be within my lifetime, when there are only electric vehicles left and there are no internal combustion vehicles left, I will absolutely miss the sound of a great V8. And this V8 has a lot of sound. It sounds fantastic, especially when you really open it up. It doesn't sound as good as the GT350 did, the last GT350, which was by far my favorite Mustang. And that car, that one had the 5.2 liter flat plane crank V8, would rev to 8,200 RPM. This one will rev to about 74, which for a more traditional American V8 is actually pretty good. It's pretty fast revving engine. The thing about the Dark Horse is it's only got 14 more horsepower than a regular Mustang GT. So the changes they made to the V8, the 5-liter Coyote V8 for the 2024 models, they gave it this twin throttle body intake setup. It's 486 horsepower now. The Dark Horse is only 500 horsepower, which, I say only that's a lot of power. But again, that's only 14 more than the GT. And the one that I drove for a week came to a grand total of $75,450 for a Mustang, which was not as much as the last GT500 I drove, but at least a good 10 grand more than the last GT350 that I drove. And I have a really hard time making a case for spending $75,000 on this car.
That's a lot of monies. That's actually a significant amount of monies.
It is a significant amount of monies. Do you want to guess at the destination charge?
Oh,
$1,250.
$1,250, you said?
Yeah, $1,250.
1,600.
Oof.
Ooh, Robbie was within $5.
Yeah.
$595.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got to pay for all that noise. Because while it's sitting, even when it's off, it's all blah, 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 blah.
Well, the Mustangs, a couple years back, even on the previous generation Mustang, they did introduce a quiet mode for, this dual valve exhaust system that they have. So you can go into the settings and, it closes off this valve and it's a lot quieter. So when you're trying to leave your neighborhood early in the morning and you don't want to piss off all your neighbors, you can just put it in quiet mode. Or if you need to take a call while you're on the road, just put it in quiet mode, and it really brings the sound level down quite substantially. But when you really want to have fun, just put it in sport mode or track mode, for the exhaust, and you will definitely enjoy the sound of this engine. It does sound good. Not as good as the GT350 did, but it sounds really good. So the other thing that I'm not thrilled about on the new Mustangs is the interior. The big dual digital screen setup, 12.3 inch instrument cluster, 12.3 inch infotainment display. And, it's kind of the current style of, kind of a tablet standing up on top of the dashboard. And, they tried to make the case when they did the original preview of it, that this is the kind of look that younger buyers want, people that play video games and stuff. They want these big screens in there. And it's like,
do they though?
I don't know.
No one has ever said,
I know.
You know what, I wish my next car had a big screen or AI. No regular person is like, you know what, I want my products to have more AI. No one. Zero people have told me they want AI. And in fact, I heard that little kids, like 10 to 15-year-olds, they make fun of stuff that looks bad by calling it AI. Like, that's a new, like...
Do they really?
Yeah, they're like, oh, that looks so AI. Like, that's...
No way. It's an insult now.
Awesome.
I kind of love that.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. I found that out from one of my friends who has a child.
That's awesome.
The Mustang I had the Recaro seats, which are $2,000 option and worth every penny. I love those seats. One of the distinguishing features of the Dark Horse compared to all other Mustangs, so that I was less fond of, was it has this polished titanium shift knob, and it was blue in the one that I had, and it looks really cool. Right up until the moment that it's been sitting in the sun on a hot summer day for a few hours, and then you go get in the car and you grab the shift knob, and it's like,
it just rips.
That wasn't good.
Your skin just sticks to the knob because it's a dark color and it's metal.
Yes. Yeah. So not great. So you might want to, consider keeping a pair of driving gloves in the car if you have one of these. And on hot days, put the driving gloves on to protect the skin on your hands. But driving it was fantastic. So this has the MagneRide dampers, which are just always awesome. Gives you a great balance between reasonable ride comfort and handling capability. And driving this car for the past week was so much better than driving the Z Nismo that I had a couple of weeks ago. On the same roads, it just, the body just stayed nice and neutral. The wheels, the suspension took up those sine wave bumps in the road. None of the bounciness, but it never felt floaty or soft either. Because these dampers can instantaneously adjust the damping rates, it's just such a fantastic combination. It has been on every car I've ever driven that has these things on them. The shifter, even despite the metal shift knob, the shifting was great. I had the 6-speed manual transmission. The engine, just it's a fabulous engine. I love the Coyote V8. The tires that were on this one, the one I had the performance package on it, it's the Dark Horse performance package, which comes with Pirelli P0 Trofeo R tires, and they're staggered. They're like 295 3019s on the front, or 305s on the front, and 315s on the rear. And clearly, whoever had this particular car before I did had been taking advantage of those tires, because you guys saw it. I showed you a picture of the tires. These things were just completely shredded by the time I got the car. And I was just praying that it would not rain during the week I had the car, because otherwise, this thing, it was almost like slicks.
The tires you'd have had to park it. Yeah.
Totally worn out. Unfortunately, it did not rain. It was nice and sunny all week. So that was good. But I really like driving the Mustang. It's the ride and handling was great. The steering was great. powertrain was fantastic. Obviously the back seat is always, tiny and almost useless. But you could put small kids back there; they'll be fine. And I did that in the past when I had Mustangs. So that was never really that much of an issue. My main beef with this thing is just that it's so expensive.
Yeah.
And I was pricing out, a regular Mustang GT, a base Mustang GT starts at about $42,000, $43,000. And even taking a Mustang GT and on the GT, you can add a lot of the features that are on this, like the Recaro seats, the Magna Ride dampers, and the big Brembo brakes. And a GT, a standard GT with those three options, it's going to be, about $55,000. So 20 grand cheaper than a Dark Horse.
Yeah. But you get that extra
Yes.
14 horsepower.
Right. So like I said, it's 20 grand cheaper than a Dark Horse. And you really aren't losing anything. So
You're not going to burn your hand when you shift gears in the afternoon.
Right.
that is true. So, if you really, really want to have the best of the best Mustang that's available right now, go ahead and get the Dark Horse. But if what you want is all the good stuff from the Dark Horse for $20,000 less, just get a GT and, be judicious with the option package or with the options list, and, get the Brembo brakes, the Recaro seats, and the Magna Ride dampers, and save yourself 20 grand.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
It is. And so that is the Mustang Dark Horse. So, it's the last American, V8 muscle car, probably very likely forever. I really can't see GM or Stellantis building something like this again anytime in the foreseeable future. But for what it is, it's awesome. So that's it. Let's move on. Robbie, you've talked in the past about wanting a VW ID Buzz, right?
I feel like I've been talking about this. Is like it's been passed down through the ages from me to my children and my children's children and their children, because it's been over a year since they unveiled the American version, which is just the long wheelbase version, in Huntington Beach. So it's been over a year, and they're like, it'll be available next summer. Well, summer is like 6 days away, 5 days away, and all we know are some trim levels. We don't know the range. We don't know the price. We just know there's going to be some trim levels. And at this point, I'm just like, whatever.
There's a shock.
What? I feel like there'll be trim levels. I'm like, okay, cool. I just feel like they've really just sort of like it's not like they already have, you can see these in Europe all over the place as delivery vans, as, personal vehicles. And I just feel like I don't know what they're doing, why they're taking so long to do this. And
You're a little bitter, Robbie.
Anyway. No, I'm not bitter because I have a car. It was just like, this would be a cool thing to have. But I think what is happening is that people who are really, really excited about this vehicle, not so much anymore, because they don't feel like it's ever going to make it to market. But when it does,
would it be any more appealing if it was available with a pop-up camper?
Oh yeah, it'd be way more appealing if it was available as a pop-up camper, like the California version, or what we have here, some Dutch people. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a Dutch company is doing a pop-up camper version of the ID Buzz. What's the name of the company here? Venture.
VENTJE. Venture. Sorry, everybody.
Sorry to the Dutch. We apologize.
We apologize. Sorry about that, guys.
But yeah, they're doing a pop-up camper version. Like the classic, VW bus campers, but based on the ID Buzz. It probably won't be cheap. It probably won't be available in America ever.
Yeah, this is a short,
but it is pretty cool inside.
I think it looks like they're doing this on the. Oh wait, starting price with the bus, starting price of the bus with interior is 95,000 euros.
Whoa.
Which
That's a lot of money.
That's significant. But it's funny, the
But-
very first comment in this particular post that you linked to, people are going to lose interest in this thing by the time it comes out.
oh, see, they're just. I know so many people who are very,
first
very
comment.
excited to have one of these, and they're just like they just don't care anymore. Especially, and if they were
It
getting it
took
for
too long.
practical reasons, now there's the EV9. They're just like, well, I need a
Yeah.
third row, or I
There's
need all
other
this
things.
extra space in an EV. Or like, oh yeah, well now there's one from Kia, so like, well,
Yeah.
it's not as cool looking or retro, but I
you
needed
can
the
get it.
You
stuff.
can actually get it.
But I can actually
You
get
can
it
go
now.
to a dealer today and buy one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh well.
Oh well, you can rent one of
Maybe-
these
maybe
in the
some-
Netherlands from 450 euros for 3 nights with 2 people.
Now that would be a deal. I
That would
would
be
actually. I
fun.
wouldn't mind doing that.
Yeah, you can. So if you're going to the Netherlands, and you're like, oh hey, I wanna get one of these. I want to go on like a little trip, like a little road trip. Apparently, it's 450 to 500 euros for depending on the package you want, what kind of bus you want, because they have a bunch of different configurations. Yeah, 3 nights. So for 3 nights, 500 euro. That's pretty good.
And when you're talking about campers, whether it's a trailer or an RV or anything like that, those things are, regardless, not just from VW, but from anybody, these things are crazy expensive.
Oh, they're super crazy expensive.
Yeah, they do get pricey fast.
Yeah, like when we were at the Blazer EV drive in December in California, they had one of the Blazers hooked up to this little camper. It's called a Happier Camper, and it's this little mini camper trailer. It's like 8 feet long or something like that. Maybe not even that. And it's really cute, really cool looking. And some friends of ours have one. They bought one last year.
Oh, I just looked it up.
$45,000.
They're really get $45,000 for that.
That's what they paid for theirs. Yeah, 45 grand.
I mean, they are super cute. I just Googled it.
Yeah.
It's very cute. I don't know if it's $45,000 cute.
And if you want to buy, a full RV or anything like that, you're looking, 150 to 200 grand anyway.
So expensive. What I found is you can just buy for a lot of cars now. There's companies that'll make an inflatable bed that fits in your car.
Oh, there you go.
So you can just get an inflatable bed, and boom. And if you have an EV, like most of the time, it has like some sort of power out.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can like do that, and then like cook some food and run your whatever. Everything is USB, powered by USB now, but some things needs power. But yeah, you can.
So $95,000 for the ID Buzz camper in that context actually is not that crazy expensive.
It's a pretty good deal, to be honest. I know
cute.
the reason they didn't bring the California to here, the last version, before when it was gas powered, it was like 105,000 or 110. It's a lot of money. They're like, oh, no one's going to pay for that. And I feel like people probably would have, but maybe not at the amount that they thought that would make sense financially.
Not enough people would have done it. Yeah.
Because they're not doing upfitting, it's not there. Volkswagen does it in house, which means, if they're just selling, like, let's say you get a Mercedes and you're just selling the Sprinter van to people who do upfitting, if you're selling it to Winnebago, who then turns around, fixes it and sell it to someone else. For Mercedes, they're just selling Sprinter vans. They're like, yay, Sprinter vans. But for like, I don't know, a factory built, something like that, then you're like, okay, we're doing all this work and we're going to sell 5,000.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
All right. So this week, Stellantis had an investor day in, it was like a day and a half, or 2 half days. First half day was out at the Chelsea Proving Grounds, and the other half day was at the Auburn Hills headquarters. And I was invited and I went. We got to see some interesting demonstrations of some of the software stuff they're working on out at Chelsea. And one of the things they talked about was their upcoming new software and electronic hardware that they're putting in the vehicles. So they previously announced these, but they actually demonstrated them for us this week. So they've got Stella Brain, Stella Cockpit and Stella Auto Drive are coming to vehicles starting early 2025, vehicles that are launching early next year. Stella Brain is the new electronic architecture. So they're moving to one of these more centralized compute architectures in the vehicle. And then they've got a new software platform that's running on top of that. And part of this is the Stella Smart Cockpit stuff that they're doing as part of a joint venture with Foxconn, who makes all your iPhones. They showed us some of the stuff that this is going to do, gave us a preview of the user interface, and it's going to be able to download apps and things like that on there. But it will also still have support for CarPlay and Android Auto, so you can plug in your phone and use that. And another component that's going to be on here is the Auto Drive, which is their level 3 conditionally automated driving system that is going to launch again first half of next year. So this is a system that lets you go hands-free and eyes-free, eyes off. So you don't have to supervise it 100% of the time. And right now, the only system that's that's available in the U.S. is the Mercedes-Benz Drive Pilot, which is when that system needs the driver to take back control, it starts to give you a warning, and you get about 10 seconds to take back control. The auto drive system, they're targeting 20 seconds for that handoff. So you actually presumably have some time to, get your bearings, if you haven't been watching the road, to regain your situational awareness, figure out what's going on and take back control of the car. And this is going to have, it's going to use cameras, radar, LiDAR, and ultrasonic sensors. Like Mercedes, they're going to launch it on a state-by-state basis as they get regulatory approval. So right now, the Mercedes system is only available in Nevada and California to use. But they've also designed the system to be able to seamlessly fall back and scale back to a level 2 plus system. If you're outside of an area where you can use the eyes off capability, you can still use it hands off, but eyes on. We're similar to Super Cruise or Blue Cruise. And then also, scale down to hands on, depending on depending on where you are. So they didn't say what vehicles this is going to be on, but it's going to be on something first half of next year. Some of the other stuff they talked about at the Investor Day was their overall strategy around flexibility. And they've got these 4 new EV native platforms that they've developed: the Stella Small, Medium, and Large, and Stella Frame. And Frame is for the big trucks and SUVs, so that's being used for the Ram and the Wagoneer. Stella Large is what they're using for the Wagoneer S and the upcoming Recon, and the Charger, and some other stuff. And then Medium and Small, all of these are designed as multi-energy platforms. So they're designed to be EVs, but they can also be built as plug-in hybrids or internal combustion versions as well. And so they had at Chelsea, they had some vehicles that we could drive around the proving grounds. They had the Charger there, but we weren't allowed to drive that one.
She just stared at it.
They did have the Peugeot E3008, which is their midsize compact crossover. It's kind of a RAV4 CRV sized crossover. It's electric, and Stephanie Brindley and I drove that one. It's quite impressive. It's a nice looking vehicle, really really nice looking vehicle. We're not going to get that one here, but
it was great. It was amazing. You can't have it.
You can't have
it. Really nice interior on this thing, but we will get vehicles based on the same platform starting next year. We are going to get a replacement for the Cherokee that's based on the Stella Medium platform. So there'll be, I don't know if they're going to retain the Cherokee name or give it a different name, but there will be a new upper compact midsize crossover coming to the Stellantis lineup next year, based on that Stella Medium platform, and I also had a chance to ride in, but not drive, the Maserati Gran Turismo Folgore.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So the Gran Turismo is Maserati's, coupe and convertible Grand Touring car, GT car. Wouldn't necessarily call it a sports car, but it's gorgeous. And the Folgore is the name that they're using, that Maserati's using for all their EV variants. So they had the Gran Turismo, and they also had the Grecale Folgore, and we got to ride along on the handling track at Chelsea. The Gran Turismo Folgare's got a 3-motor setup. It's got a range. The EPA range is, I think, 260 some miles, 761 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds. And man, this thing was incredible. I rode shotgun with Chris Wilkins, who is the vehicle dynamics engineer for the Gran Turismo, and this thing was so fast, and he had this thing, hanging the back end out, going around some of the curves. It was just unbelievable how good this car felt at least from the passenger seat. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Stephanie got to ride in the convertible with Ralph Gilles.
Woohoo!
Yeah. And
fancy.
So, yeah. But I am definitely looking forward to getting my hands on a Gran Turismo Folgore, hopefully sooner rather than later.
That would be nice.
Yeah. Let's see. I think that was it for highlights. Yeah. So the big thing is Stellantis is taking this flexible approach, so that their plants and their platforms are being set up so they can shift based as the market demands. Carlos Tavares, the CEO, said right at the beginning of the presentation, going forward, Stellantis is going to comply with all the regulations. We are going to build what we have to, so that we are not going to pay any fines. We are not going to buy any credits from anybody. They're building vehicles that will allow them to meet all the regulations in whichever markets they're playing in. So, they're going to be, because of the flexibility, they can flex to whatever the customer demand is. So they can, if there turns out to be a lot of demand for the Ram 1500 Ram Charger, they can build more of those, or they can build more revs, or they can build more of the gas versions. Same with the Charger and all the other stuff that's coming up. At least those vehicles that have some flexibility. I think the Wagoneer S is not intended to be offered, even though the platform can support hybrid or internal combustion. I don't think right now they have any plans to offer those variants of that vehicle. Probably because it's basically the same size as the Grand Cherokee, and the Grand Cherokee already offers gas and plug-in hybrid versions, so you don't really need it in the Wagoneer S. But,
yeah.
So that was Stellantis Investor Day, and the link to the presentations will be in the show notes if you're interested in watching. It was several hours. There's some interesting stuff in there. They went into a lot of other stuff, around some of their plans, their global plans, for what they're doing in other markets and things like that, and some of the technology. But that's just a few highlights. Nicole,
Yes.
you also drove the new GMC Acadia, right?
I did. I got to drive the GMC Acadia. So we went down to Carolinas. Where was I? North Carolina, South Carolina. We were down in the Carolina, Savannah. We landed in Georgia, and we're driving around. It's hot down there. I don't know how people live down there. Anyway, the Acadia, it was so hot. Like, you walk out the door and instantly it's like, oh, it's really hot. And it was like,
I was in Palm Springs, and I'm like, why? There's no water here. These people are all doomed if the infrastructure collapses.
It was just so hot. Although, I mean, they do have really good food. I mean, I had like some shrimp and grits and some really good biscuits, and there's some Carolina barbecue, so I can't complain. Maybe that's why you live there. You're like, girl, it's the food. That's why we live here.
You know what though? You can do barbecue anywhere. You can make shrimp and grits.
This is
anywhere.
true. I could
You
make
don't
trim
have to be
right
in
now
Carolina.
in my kitchen in New Hampshire, and it's only 71. So, so GMC Acadia. So they kind of did like it's sort of a more of everything. It's like longer, it's taller, it's wider, so it's bigger. They have a new infotainment screen. They now offer Super Cruise hands-free driver assistance for the entire lineup. They've done a lot of trim upgrades. There's a lot of changes. This is definitely an all new, and there's a new Turbo 4, which is the only engine that you can drive. I enjoyed this. I think what I think is nice about this is the styling that they've done. It's definitely sort of this in your face styling. GMC is not this timid sort of mild mannered brand. I feel like if you're driving one of these, they've got big grills and they've got big proportions, and this does that. And I think it looks great. And it's a good bit longer. It's 10.6 inches longer. That's a significant difference in a vehicle. Like it's almost a foot of extra length in a vehicle. It does make it look bigger. And I like the different trims they have. They only have 3, and the Denali and the AT4 were the 2 that we got to drive. I keep wanting to say AT4X. I actually had to stop. It was like AT4. So the Denali is your fancy pants version. The AT4 is your more off-road version. So you have to decide which are you fancy pants or are you off-road. And they're, either way, it's still a premium vehicle. So it's not like once you go to a different trim, suddenly it's all down market. It's just, there's a little bit more ruggedness to the AT4. It's a little bit more capability where the Denali gets, like bright chrome trims and is a little bit more traditional luxury interior. Either way, they're very comfortable. It's a very roomy. The interior feels absolutely cavernous. It's funny because when you look at it parked there, it seems like a big SUV, but you sit down inside of it and it feels absolutely gigantic. I feel like this would be the best car for like families that are going on a road trip because you can easily separate your kids into their own little compartments, kind of. So nobody's like leaning over like, Susie's touching me. No, he's touching me. Like there's none of that because there's so much space in this. And I think that's a big deal in a family SUV is so that your kids really feel like they have their own space and they aren't all like bickering the whole time. The third row, it's decent, but I feel like as is in almost every SUV, the third row is where you just want to be if you have a brief time in the car. You're going out to dinner, you're riding with friends, or you have a short hop. You don't want to be riding in the third row of this forever. And here was the interesting thing was, so the Denali has like everything is power. There's a power folding third row and a one-touch flat folding and sliding second row. So it's got the power stuff. They don't do that on the AT4. It has a manual third row. And it was this is a pet peeve. Ready? So when you pull, when they have a strap that you pull from the back that you sort of release it and then the seats fall forward so that your third row is now flat. I want to pull that strap and have the thing release. I don't have to pull the strap. And while I'm pulling the strap, press the seat forward. It's like this you cannot do it with one hand. You have to have
be a single motion.
It should be one single motion. Pull that strap. And when it releases, let the seat fall forward. Like, let me control it. So just like kablam. But let the seat release and fall forward. And this one, it releases the seat. But if you just let go, it doesn't go anywhere. So I was trying to do, I'm like, what? So you actually have to pull the strap and release, which I think is an annoying thing. I just like if you're lowering the seats, just want to lower them. Let me just lower the seats.
Yeah, you don't need to. Especially if you're like, what if you're holding things? Now what?
Right? Well, what's funny is I was trying to show what the back of it looked like and was trying to, I'm like, what the heck? I had to have somebody else stand behind me with a camera because I could not single do it with one set of hands. You're going to have my camera going whoosh way up close to the seats. So that was something, but that's not in every term. That was the AT4. So weird decision to do that. I'm not sure why they did that. But you do get a bigger infotainment screen this year. It says 15 inch, like portrait style screen, works really well. There's an 11-inch digital instrument cluster, which is also larger by a couple inches than what it had before, which is nice. You get, fancy audio system. It's like a Bose audio. I think it's 12 speakers is standard. And then there's a 16 speaker upgrade. It looks inside and all the features are there except for the stupid seats that don't have power seats in the AT4. Tons of room for your stuff. You have, I think, about 57 cubic feet behind the second row and 97.5 behind the first row. So you've got plenty of room. The new thing for engine wise, it's a turbo, 2.5 liter turbo, 328 horsepower, 326 pound-feet of torque, 8-speed auto. That's a good bit of power for a vehicle this big, and it just moved pretty well. You mash the gas, the thing's going to get out of its own way. My only objection to that, it's driving was smooth, like the transmission is smooth. It's very nice to drive. However, I found it a little bit on the loud side. Like when I really smashed the pedal, I could hear the engine. I could hear it more than I wanted to. And again, because this is, I don't think you'd call GMC a luxury brand. Let's call it a premium brand. Because it's a premium brand, I wanted professional grade. I wanted it to be quiet. And I thought, you know what? It's a little bit on the loud side. As far as pricing, you've got the Elevation, which is 42.6, the AT4, which is 50, and the Denali you can do front wheel drive is 54.3, and all wheel drive is 56.3. So, uh-oh. Can you hear that noise in the background? I don't know if you could hear it. Okay.
It went away.
So, something just started playing on the browser I have open to look at my information on this car. I'm like, please don't tell me that's playing. I think it was the national anthem. So you guys missed that. Wow, it's still playing. Okay, I'm gonna have to shut this down. I'm getting all this background noise. Like I have an ad that won't stop playing. So it's pretty affordable as terms of like where it's not luxury car price, it's premium car price, which is fine, but the only thing I'd like to see, I don't like how the seats work, the release. And I think the engine, there need to be a little bit more quiet between the engine compartment and the passenger compartment because it was too noisy. But in terms of ride and handling, it was really nice to drive. And they did take us on a little bit of off-roading. They were doing some kind of construction and there was all this, like that really loose, silty kind of red sand that you get down in the Carolinas. So my black car was like immediately whoosh, no longer black, which was awesome because I hadn't videoed it yet. I'm like, well, okay, this is how it's going to be now. But they did have us go in a little bit of like they had made a very short area where you could go over some little bumps and you could get that, articulation, like one wheel up, one wheel down. And it did it. It just fine. This is the AT4. I don't know how many people are going to do that kind of stuff in their Acadia. I don't know that I'd recommend it, but it could do it. So it's a good, I like it. And I think if you look at the old one, you look at the new one is,
Oops.
Oh no.
We lost Nicole.
That's how it's going to be. She just gets sucked into the ether.
While we wait for her to hopefully come back, one of the things about the new Acadia, the second, so this is the third generation of the Acadia. The original Acadia was I think the first of the Lambda platform 3-row crossovers that GM built back in 2006 or 7. They launched them. So you had at that time you had the Acadia. There was a Saturn branded version of it, which I forget what it was called, what the nameplate was. There was the Buick Enclave, and then the Chevy Traverse was the last one. And of course, the Saturn's long since gone. But at the time, they were all the same size, and in fact, they were actually about the same size as the Tahoe. Which is why these things are so cavernous. And there she is. She's back.
Did you get my text message? I'm like, my power just went out and I lost everything for a minute.
Oh wow.
So I was just talking about the size change. The first generation Acadia and Traverse and Enclave were about the same size as a Tahoe. And that's why they feel so big, because they actually are quite large.
Right.
Hella big.
Right.
The second generation, for some reason, when they did the second generation, they kept the Traverse and the Enclave, the Buick Enclave, the same size, but they made the Acadia smaller. They decided to try and go for a little bit different niche with the Acadia. That's why it was like 10, 11 inches shorter than the Traverse and the Enclave. And it was primarily a 2-row rather than a 3-row crossover. And I think it was last summer or last fall when they revealed the Acadia, and I was at the backgrounder for it here in Detroit, and they were talking about it. And they said, yeah, a lot of the feedback we got from customers is they actually preferred the longer one, and so that's why we went back to a longer version this time. It's the same size as the Traverse and the Enclave. So it basically is the same size. Same. I think it's a couple inches shorter than the current it's about 3 inches shorter, I think, than the current generation of the Yukon and Tahoe. But it's still a very large, 3-row. They call it a midsize. This is not a midsize. This is a full size 3-row crossover.
It really is. That's the thing. That like this midsize, like you see it sitting there. It's like it doesn't look quite as big as it's big. But you're thinking, yeah, well, this isn't a full size, and you get inside, you're like, this is cavernous. This is huge.
Yeah. Which is fine if that's what you need.
Yeah. That's why I think it's a great vehicle for truly, if you're with kids, you have kids, you have a family and you're road tripping and you want to be all the stuff, all the family, everyone has their own space.
Everything you own, you need to take with you. Boom.
Right. You can put it all. And sometimes when you have kids, you overpack on purpose because kids will throw you for a loop. They need stuff or you need stuff. You're like, dang it. So I think it's a good choice for a family, and it's nice. And it's very plush. It's very comfortable. And I do think the interior materials are much better this year. Mm-hmm. I think it looks better. There's less of the plastic fantastic in this. And I think they did a really good job upgrading the interior. This one is markedly better.
What did you think of the screen layout? Because this has got a 15-inch portrait style display with the glued on volume knob, just like the Fords, like the Mach-E. When I first saw it, it's like, oh, it's the same as the Mach-E.
Exactly.
Whereas the Traverse has the 17-inch landscape style.
Yeah. I think the way this was I liked how this worked. And I thought it was, I don't like it when they have the screen. So it feels like it's almost like it's very high. This one was a little bit, the way they positioned it, it doesn't feel like weirdly when you get in the car, it's like, oh, there's a wheel and oh my gosh, just a giant screen. Mm-hmm. Like it's well positioned and it's well located so that it's in a good spot. So it doesn't visually dominate everything. It sort of blends in with the center console. And it's a very crisp graphics, very responsive screen, everything they have set up. It was very easy to navigate, very easy and intuitive to use. So I like the new setup. I think it looks good and I think they did a good job with it.
Okay, cool. Any other final thoughts on the Acadia?
No, it's a good car.
All right.
Good car.
Well, going from the not a midsize Acadia to the not a compact Equinox EV, what is wrong with dealers? Why do they insist on being hated?
They do things that they think they can do.
Yeah. So just when we thought, dealer markups.
I feel like if you ever found a dealer who was just decent, it would be like they make $1 bazillion. And we'd be like, that guy, he's honest. Yeah. No way.
Yeah, it's funny how dealers are all so wealthy. And of course, that's how they can afford to make lots of campaign contributions to state legislators that then write franchise laws that prevent automakers from directly competing with their dealers. Anyway, so just when a few weeks ago when I talked about the Equinox EV and how it's reasonably affordable and it's probably the best EV that GM's making right now. Dealers are turning around. Some dealers are turning around. Not all of them, but there are some. They're turning around and slapping $5,000 markups on the Equinox EV. Yeah. So, if you are shopping for an Equinox EV and the dealer insists on putting a markup on there, just walk away. Just say, nope, not going to pay it, and walk out the door. Because you know what? There's like 3,000 Chevrolet dealerships across the United States. And if there's one that's charging a markup, go find one, because there are lots of dealers that are not putting markups on these things. You should be able to get one of these for sticker price. And if they insist on charging you a markup, just walk out the door. Say, nope, not going to do it.
Yeah. You can always find someone else. There's a lot of dealerships. It's not like there's only one or two. There's a bazillion. Go find a different one.
It's not,
Yeah, and I said, Chevrolet alone has something like 3,000 dealers across the United States. So pretty sure you can find one, unless you live in someplace really remote. If you live in anywhere that's, at all populous, if you look online, you will find a lot of Chevrolet dealers in your area.
Yeah. So go to a good
They're
one. Go to one
everywhere.
who's not trying to
Yeah.
stick you for extra money. Yep.
All right, let's answer a few listener questions that we got this week. Let's start off with Eric Thatcher, who sent us a question by email. And yes, I was wondering if you all see Rivian vehicles in your area. I live near Bloomington, Illinois, and see Rivian trucks and SUVs all the time, and was wondering if that's because I live close to the factory or if they're just that prevalent.
I see them everywhere, but I live in the Bay Area, so yeah, there's AVs all over the
yeah.
place.
A decent, not a huge number of Rivians, but like I said, I had a whole the paving guys. They have a whole fleet of them, or
Oh,
one
yeah, the
paving
paving
company. The paving guys. I see it. I mean, I feel compared to other, aside from Tesla, compared to other EVs, I don't think I really see more of them or less of them than anybody else.
Yeah, I see I'm in Southeast Michigan. I see a reasonable amount of them around here. Not a huge amount, but the Rivian Tech Center is about 15 miles away from me here, 10 miles away from here, probably 10. Yeah. And so there are, quite a few people around here that work at Rivian. You see them with M plates on them from time to time, being tested. And, just there's a bunch of people that have bought them. There aren't any in my neighborhood yet, but I do see them around pretty regularly, especially in Ann Arbor, which is a more, Ann Arbor is a fairly affluent city. And, so you do tend to see more expensive vehicles in Ann Arbor, and Rivian's, the R1s are not cheap. But yeah, I see a fair number of R1Ts and R1Ss in Ann Arbor. So it probably depends a lot on where you live. All right. Jeff D in the Discord, just asked a question a few days ago. Said it was pretty straightforward. Super Cruise and Blue Cruise are considered level 3 autonomy, correct? Or are they level 2?
As an official SAE spokesperson, level 2. I'm also not an official SAE spokesperson, so yeah.
But you work for SAE.
But I work for SAE.
Yeah. You slept at a Holiday Inn last night? No. Okay.
So the difference between level 2 and level 3, level 2 is that is a system that is primarily a driver assist system. It requires the human driver to supervise the system. So it has a degree of automation that still requires the human to be paying attention at all times and ready to take over at any moment. Super Cruise, Blue Cruise, let's see, Nissan ProPilot version 2, actually version 1. There's a BMW system that I forget the specific branding, Drive Assist Professional or something like that. And now Stellantis's Active Drive Assist on the Ram. These are all systems that require you to watch the road at all times when using the system. Even though they're hands-free, they are eyes on, and you have to be ready to take control at any moment, to put your hands back on the wheel and take full control at any moment. Level 3 means that you, during the limited, within the limited operating domain of these systems, you do not have to supervise at all times, but you do still have to remain awake and alert. So you can't take a nap, but you can look away from the road. You can watch a video or text or things like that. And the only system currently on the market in North America that technically meets those criteria is the Mercedes-Benz Drive Pilot, and then next year the Stellantis Auto Drive system is supposed to meet those criteria as well.
Oh,
there you go. Easy answer.
All right. And finally, Mr. Burns also asked this question in the Discord. Says, Mr. Burns has a friend at work who's looking to get another used Ford, $30,000 or less, with preferably 30,000 miles or less, leaning towards the Edge or Escape. I've advised her to skip the Edge and maybe consider the Bronco Sport over the Escape since it's the newer iteration of the platform. Also recommend she look at a Ford Maverick XL as is. I'm the second person to recommend the Bronco Sport to her, However, I'm a Jeep guy and I don't really know what trim level would be appropriate, cheap enough to meet her budget. For whatever reason, she feels she needs leather seats. I've told her that her dogs will destroy those, and she will regret those in the summer getting in and out of the car. What would you all suggest? Bronco Sport or Maverick XL?
She does.
And
I
she-
don't think she's. It doesn't seem like she was asking for a truck. So Bronco Sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the same thing. If she's looking at Edge or Escape, she's looking for an SUV or a small one.
Yeah.
So I think I would do Sport. I don't think truck is very different to someone who's looking for an SUV style.
And with dogs, first of all, forget dogs. I don't know about you, Robbie, but I have a seat cover that I throw in the car when I take the dogs somewhere, and so it doesn't really matter what the upholstery is, because they just get their muddy paws on the seat cover, and I can take that out and hose it off.
They're not that expensive either anymore. You
Yeah.
can get them for like
No.
25, 30 bucks. We got one for the Ioniq 5 because we just we have one for the Jaguar, and I don't know where that thing went. And then we just put a blanket down, like a big comforter in the Kona. But then we bought like something for like 25 bucks for the Ioniq 5, and it's fine. It keeps us.
Yeah,
If dogs are a priority, shouldn't we be telling her to get a Subaru?
That's true.
Isn't that like that?
that yes,
Get
that
an
would be true.
Outback, to be honest. Just get an Outback.
Yeah.
And I think one of them has like from Subaru this actual covers you can get. Is it the Outback? Shoot, it wasn't that long ago I drove it, but they have covers right from Subaru that cover the seats and the backs of the front seats and like the seat itself and the cargo area and even a little plastic piece to put over the door. So if your dog jumps and puts his paws in the door and scratches at the plastic, he doesn't destroy your car. I don't know how. Maybe she has a really big dog. I don't know. But I feel like Subaru.
Yeah. So Subaru is a great choice as well. Get a Crosstrek or an Outback, depending on how big you need. I would stay away from the Edge, just because, it's going out of production soon. It's okay, but it's not that great.
It's really expensive for
it is expensive.
It's expensive for not being great.
The one reason why you might want to consider the Escape over the Bronco Sport is you can get it as a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid, which you can't with the Bronco Sport. The Bronco Sport is internal combustion only, although you can get the Maverick as a hybrid. But it sounds like she's more interested in an SUV than a pickup truck. And depending on where she's putting the dogs, if they're going in the back, if she wants to fold down the back seat for the dog, then the Bronco Sport would be a better choice than the Maverick. I did a little quick searching on Auto Trader for used Bronco Sports and Mavericks, and there's plenty of them out there for under $30,000 with under 30,000 miles on them. Neither of them offer leather. The Bronco Sport is available with seats covered in Ford's Active X material, which is a faux leather. It's it's vinyl, but it's nice. It's a nice material. I mean, any modern vinyl seats in a car are not that different from leather. So
they're not that different because they don't do that weird smiling. As you sit on them, they just start stretching. So the more you sit on a leather seat, the more it stretches, and you get these weird smiles, and you get like where it's sort of like it's bent down into the middle from the edges.
Yeah.
So and then they crack and.
But I mean, modern vinyl seats are fine. But to get those on the Bronco Sport, on the Maverick, the Active X seats are only available on the Lariat. The XL and XLT are cloth only. But those fabric seats are also really nice. They're very durable. The Bronco Sport, I was looking through the various trims on the Bronco Sport, and they on the Outer Banks, which is the top trim level for the Bronco Sport, they offer something that they call premium seating trim, which they don't even call it Active X or vinyl. It's premium trimmed seats. It's vinyl. It's not leather. It's vinyl, but it looks good. Should be fairly durable. and that's available on the Outer Banks and on the Badlands. But the Outer Banks starts at like 33,000, yeah, or 34,000 for new one. And you can get used ones for under $30,000. So if she wants a Ford, I would suggest going for the Bronco Sport, and probably don't even necessarily get the Outer Banks. Get one of the lower trims with the cloth seats, or get a Subaru.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's just good. They're like, hey, we made these things just for you and your dog.
Yeah. Or if you want a hybrid, get the Escape.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
hybrid Escape, 40 miles per gallon. If you get the plug-in hybrid, you're probably not going to find a plug-in hybrid Escape for under 30 grand. But if you get one of those, you'll get close to 40 miles of electric driving range. So that's it for this week. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
That's it for
I
me.
got
All right.
nothing.
All right. Well, we'll
Nice.
talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.